a lot to get in half an hour.
Yeah. Hi. We are live with one of our penultimate episodes of In the Spotlight, where we shine a light on entrepreneurs, SMEs, and innovators. I'm Maxine Crow, your host, and I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Dan Fenwick of Venture 10. Dan, it's always a pleasure to meet and speak with you. How are you today?
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, thanks for having us. Although your house looks much more warmly in the background than my shiny.
I'm gonna try and find a Christmas scene on this online podcasting, because I've got some really cool ones where you've got, it looks like it's snowing in the background. It's so
nice.
awesome. Anyway, I will see what I can do for you.
Yeah.
All right, so let's make a start. Can you start by just introduce yourself to the audience and your business?
Yeah, so my name's Dan Fenwick, as Max has said. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Venture 10. In a nutshell, we're a recruitment company, but we see ourselves much more of a talent matchmaking agency. So we look to match people as opposed to send CVs. Yeah.
Gosh, I remember the days of recruitment agencies, and just explain to the audience what makes you different.
I guess where we started out from, really. I mean, my background isn't in recruitment or in facilities for that matter. I've had little episodes where I've sort of dropped in and out, but I was previously running a management consultancy, so for about 4.5 years. And our specialism there was cultural transformation. So we used to go into big organizations, typically after an M&A, lots of restructuring and quite a bit of chaos normally as you're trying to put two organizations together. And we would come in and look to get everybody aligned, working in the right direction, create harmony in the business, and keep it going in the right direction. Once I left that business, I got asked to come in on a project to open up a new division within a recruitment agency, but this time doing it differently. I couldn't decide how to do it differently without speaking to the people most involved in it. So we went out and spoke to pretty much everyone that's involved in the recruitment sort of process, whether it be companies, hiring companies, agencies, candidates, internal recruitment teams, whatever it was, and everybody said they loved it. No, I'm only joking. No, everybody, of course, said it was a pretty terrible experience on the whole. They didn't really like it so well. And that sort of lit a bit of a fire within me. And what I was quite shocked by, maybe naively, was that there actually wasn't much alignment in recruitment at all. So what I'd come from before, which was aligning cultures and aligning people and aligning businesses together to get them going further, faster, actually there was very little of that done in recruitment.
Yeah.
And recruitment was just a tiny, a micro version of what we'd been doing in much larger organizations. We want to align one person or a few people, if we're hiring a few people at once, with the whole organization and get somebody that's heading in a direction and bring them into the business that's heading in the same direction, or vice versa. And hopefully that means that they come on board, they stay on the journey with us, and hopefully they're still around and performing a long while later. So that's sort of where it stemmed from, really.
So what were the initial challenges you faced, recognizing that there was this this requirement and this gap to fill in the recruitment sector? So what were the challenges when you started out?
Challenges within our own business, or challenges within recruitment?
Within your own business, within Venture 10.
Yeah, I think it was the major one was coming up with that new way and going out to the market with that new way, which obviously people aren't used to. So you've got the education piece of saying, look, this is the way that we bring people into the business, not just matching a few bullet points on a job description with a few bullet points on a CV. Anybody could do that almost, but doing it in a way where you're aligned with this new team member so they can hit the ground running as fast as possible and they stay with you for as long as possible. And because that was a different way of doing things, it took some extra conversations. It took a bit of extra education. And in the meantime, we've got to keep the lights on, right? I guess sort of every business has got that. We want to do some new things. We want to do things a little bit differently. But whilst that takes a little bit of time to grab hold, we need to keep the lights on. So the easiest way of doing that is doing it the old way. And we really didn't want to do it the old way. We didn't want to just scoop a load of CVs, register to some CV boards and start firing them out to people. We had a big network anyway. Our team has got 40 years plus in facilities management between us, but we didn't want to do that sort of old way of are you after an operations manager? Here's 5 to have a look at. Let us know what you think, and compete in that sort of race to the bottom. We wanted to do it differently, find out about the candidates. Where are they? What do they see in the future? What are the important milestones along their journey? What's important about joining a business for them? And then match that with an organization, and that takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, it always does when you're starting out from scratch or almost. But to just tell us what strategies have you employed to actually grow and scale the business?
Interesting question. We've changed our tact on that a couple of times. So once we felt that we had a good model for doing that initially, we ramped it up using technology largely, lots of automation. And what we found was our message stopped meeting actually the activities we were doing. So we decided to slow that down a little bit and come back. There's lots and lots. I think we all get about 10 LinkedIn messages every day, don't we? Telling us we're going to get, 15 hot leads in our inbox tomorrow or whatever it would be, right? So we'd kind of jumped in with a couple of bits of software and played with some tactics for how do we connect with more people? How do we find out about them and find out the important information as quickly as possible so we can present that to the organization so they can make really good decisions, informed decisions, make sure they're using their time wisely and interviewing the right people. But obviously, the more you sort of drive that, the less personalized it gets, of course, because it's the technology that enables it to be scalable. So, we've kind of gone backwards and forwards on making sure that we are automating the non-human parts of the process and really doubling down on the human parts of the process. So if there's value to be added from a personal perspective, because we're reacting to something or we're eliciting some information that maybe a piece of tech can't, then that ought to be, a human in there. Let's not try and automate it. Let's not try and swap it for technology or software. So it's been about finding that balance, and we've broken our whole process down into about 70 parts. So we've got 70 individual steps from the point that we reach out to somebody to the point that they would start in an organization. There's 70 different actions that happens. And by getting really sort of minute and detailed on that, it's enabled us to see exactly what, a piece of software can do, because it saves people time and it avoids delays maybe or inaccuracies and things like that. And which bits should be the human bit where we can add most value.
That's it. And the human element, as much as I'm pro technology all the way, as you know. However, you can't get away from certain elements, especially when it's a people business. There has to be that human interaction, and especially for someone that's going for a role where you want to establish that relationship. Because if a client says, "Oh, what about this certain person?" You've got to know that person, and you can't do that with technology. So I really agree with you there, and commend you there, because having that minute detail broken down where you can then split off to add more value to that human element is so important.
Yeah.
Can you share a success story with us? I know some things might be confidential, but without breaching any confidentialities, can you share a success story with us so that we can really celebrate that?
Yeah, so I guess on both sides we had so on an individual side we had somebody that had previously been in sales for a little while, and then had left sales, sort of the corporate sales world, and had gone into sports. So was previously a rugby player, went into sales but really loved sport, dropped out of sales and thought, I want to do my own thing, you know, the entrepreneurial vision or whatever it is. So they'd gone and done some like physio type stuff. So they thought, you know, maybe this is a new career for me. And when they got in touch, they said, that isn't a career for me. No good doing my own thing. I like being part of a team. I don't necessarily want to go back into a corporate sales role. I feel like maybe there's a better place that I could add value in, but I don't quite know where that is. So the person was, you know, largely, I wouldn't say lost, but, you know, wasn't quite sure where the next steps were for them. So we did a little bit of work with them. We looked at their sort of behavioral profile, so quite similar to personality testing, but more behavioral based, and looked at what sort of environments he's thrived in the past, what he really loved doing, took into account the whole sports side of things. And in the end, he went in as a marketing manager. So we introduced him. It wasn't a client we were working with, but he joined as a country marketing manager for a supplements business. And a lot of the work they did was partnering with sports clubs. He was French, and he became the country marketing manager for France. Wow. So he got to speak his own language, his first language. He got to still work with the sales team, but now in more of a marketing guise. It was still in sports because they partnered with sports teams. And so that was quite a success story, because I don't think he probably wouldn't have seen an advert and gone, that's the job for me. And they certainly wouldn't have looked at his CV and gone, he's the guy for us. But just by reading between the lines and again, looking at the alignment, we're a big believer that recruitment is about alignment, not persuasion. And unfortunately, a lot of job ads are out there with lots of, you know, sexy, taglines and phrases and stuff like that make us think, oh, what an amazing opportunity. But actually, if we're just really brutally honest, the environment just might not be right for us, or the team might not be right, or the direction of the business might not be right. And likewise, the same on CVs, right? We're not going to write a CV and say, do you know, I'm a terrible procrastinator, but if you can look past that, I'm a great person. We're just not going to write that. We write all the good stuff and leave everything else out. And for me, it's much better, you know, when you look at a sort of a canvas, you know, there's parts of that canvas that you really love, and there's parts that you probably wouldn't really take much notice of. Maybe in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little splash of paint or whatever. You never really noticed it before. Yeah. But you need all of the aspects of it to make what the canvas is. And we've all got that. So rather than hide from the bits that maybe aren't so great, really what we should do is, and we want to see this in companies as well, right, is I am all of me. You get all of me. You can't just take my arm or my head, or you've got to take all of me, right? And in our companies, the same goes. Like, we might have a wonderful brand and a brilliant image out in the marketplace, and we're sponsoring all the big events, and, you know, we're really innovative, but actually our systems and processes are a bit clunky in the background. And it's, you know, and sometimes it is a bit of a nightmare getting projects over the line, but that's the good part of the business, and that's not so good. And hopefully you can help with that. Hopefully you can contribute to that. And be a part of what that is, because it comes with all of it. You don't get to avoid that bit. I still need you to put stuff into CRM, right? Even if the CRM isn't working that great. So,
yeah, definitely a strong believer in warts and all approach.
Yeah,
it has to be. It has to be. Dan, what's in the future for Venture 10? What's the business look like in the next 5 years for you?
5 years is a big question. We had our strategy meeting last week, and we just simplified. We've got a load of stuff for our vision and mission, stuff like that. Our mission is about a life-enhancing recruitment experience. So we're just focused on that all the time. Every single point of interaction, how can we add more value? How can we create more clarity? How can we, produce more connections? And we simplified our vision down to a world where more people are enjoying their lives because they're enjoying their work. So that's like our sort of vision statement. So for next year, what does that look like? It's speaking to more people and finding out more about them more quickly so that we can direct that in the best way possible. What we're really interested in doing isn't filling seats or filling jobs, but is finding places where people can really be all of them, the best of them, and provide real value, and the business will provide it back. And if we can make that happen more, then more natural value will be created. We're not talking about putting someone in an organization and the organization needs to start coming up with new initiatives or new programs. I think we're all busy working on those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But there's just simple things, all of us look for something slightly different from our team or from our line manager or from our business that we're working in. There's parts of it we value more, we enjoy more. And if we can align on that, then without really doing much more, we'll find people that feel at home with us, enjoy it, do their best work, and hopefully stick around for a long time.
Oh, that's brilliant. Just a bit around wisdom now. What is the best piece of advice that you've received as an entrepreneur?
Oh, that's a good one. What's the best piece of advice?
And it could be two pieces if you like.
Yeah, the best piece of advice. I'm trying to steer away from all the cheesy advice lines that you see in quotes on those GIFs and stuff. So an old mentor of mine said something to me that we've definitely done in the second half of this year, and that was sometimes you've got to slow down to speed up. I'm just a fidgety person. I like creating stuff. I like seeing things and solving things. I like finding opportunities and going after them. And that's not always good. I think it was it Steve Jobs or somebody like that used to say, you don't get paid for how many yeses you say, you get paid for how many no's you say. Some sort of phrase like that. And it's definitely been true for me. We've been running like the clappers because in the first year of our business, what we really focused on was, if we're going to do this differently, how does it need to work? How does it need to work for the companies that fits with them? How does it need to work with the candidates so it's a great experience? So there was lots of figuring out going on in that first year. So it kind of felt like we're not, I'm an entrepreneur, likes to come up with something and get it to market, right? I'm a sales director myself. So as that's not happening because we haven't quite got the product right or the service right, then you start to get that feeling, come on, let's go. So there was quite a lot of drive, certainly in the second year of the business. Let's just move really, really fast. And sometimes we made our objectives way too big, and it creates, internal pressure and stuff like that. And what we've done more consciously at the end of this year is slow down and just get things right. Really put that sort of care and attention that certain aspects need, and double down on relationships. You mentioned relationships earlier. We're a massive, believer and promoter that recruitment is relationships. So we're just bringing two people together or one person into a group of people, and it's the relationships that will conquer through that. So we've just been slowing down so that we can spend more time in that relationship space rather than totally focused on scaling all the time. And as entrepreneurs, we love talking about it, don't we? In my meeting that I've just had this morning before this call, it was, how are you going to scale? What's your strategy for scaling? It's like we love thinking about scaling, and sometimes we just miss that little ingredient that we need that keeps our dish special, that keeps people coming back for another meal and bringing another person with them. We're so busy, getting the furniture list right for the calf, ready for opening our next calf, that we actually forget about getting the meal right. So
yeah,
that was a good piece of advice.
that's a great analogy, actually. How do you maintain your work-life balance with the demands of running the business?
That's also changed quite a bit. We organically gave birth to a residential cleaning business. Some of the team's background is in cleaning from the facilities perspective. Spent years and years building cleaning teams nationally. So we got a few inquiries about, we don't want to hire a head of facilities or a head of property, but would you guys look after some of our sort of outsourced services that we need, waste management and property cleaning, stuff like that. And at first, no. But after a little while, it sort of mounted up, and we decided, a couple of the team decided to sort of break off and give that a go. So we've got two sides of the business. So we had that, two baby businesses, and then I've got a 5-year-old as well, as you know, Max. So yeah. And again, I've been one in the past where I've liked to have my calendar totally scheduled. I run my calendar from Calendly. So it's like, if there isn't a time in there, there's no time for a call. I've got quite a strong morning routine. And particularly now I live in the Northeast, on the mouth of the River Tyne. So 2 or 3 times a week, I like to go and have a dip in the sea and things like that. And it all just got a little bit hectic, that the whole sort of stereotype of the CEO's life, and it's, you're up at 5 a.m. and you're doing all of this stuff and you're running multiple businesses. And but with the cleaning business growing, my partner was really driving that and making sure that was working right, and that grew quite quickly. We're getting extra vans out on the ground, stuff like that. So I had to take on some different roles, and that was. Again, I guess the slow down to speed up thing, if you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So I just had to step back and go, what are the roles in life? And one of those roles was taking care of the boy. And that's what I've had to done. It's actually been an absolute blessing. Got an amazing relationship with him, and I feel blessed for that. And it's taken a little bit of getting used to. I wouldn't say it was my natural place or my natural role, and my partner's definitely better at it than I am. But I've given it my best shot. So,
but the time, there's a slight lag on my side at the moment, so apologies for that. But these times, they're absolutely priceless, and you're not going to get them back. So I know what I would choose. It would definitely be the relationship with your son. The business isn't going. The business will be the business, and it will keep going, and it will grow. And things will align. But those moments. I mean, my daughter's now 18, as you know, and the moments have just gone so quickly. It's super special. So hang on as long as you can to them.
Absolutely. And it ties into the question you just asked, about, 5 years and stuff like that. And I've always been one to be looking into the future, wanting to go as fast as possible. And sometimes and particularly like, previous mentors and older friends of mine and stuff like that, they're maybe in their late 50s, 60s, been in business much longer than I have. They'll say things like, I really drove that thing in that direction, or I really threw everything into that and I missed my daughter's graduation, or whatever it is. I often hear stories like that, and they're never, if I got my chance again, I'd totally miss my daughter's graduation again. They're never that. So there's no point to be in a room of wisdom if you're not going to put some of it in your pocket and take it with you. So for me, when I hear things like that, I go, I'm not going to do that, because realistically, if the business, is at a certain point in 2 years or 3 years, what's the difference, really? and obviously there is going to be some difference to the clients we could help, or the individuals we could help, or the giving that we do in the business and things like that. But is it going to change the world? Probably not. But if something internally combusts, is it going to change my world? And it is.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely will. Absolutely will. So tell us, Dan, how do you manage competition, especially when you're in such a focused niche as recruitment?
Yeah, competition. I try not to focus on that, or I don't even try. I don't really focus on the competition that much, if I'm brutally honest. I know some people would go, "Oh no, you're leaving yourself at risk," but for me, we got really clear on who it was that we wanted to work with, and we knew what our sort of technical background was and where our network was. So we had certain resources that we could leverage straight away. So that was one. We know we brought to life the type of organization, the type of people that we liked to work with. And then what we did is we did do a bit of market analysis on who was doing what and in what geography and what their proposition was, I guess. And we, because we were going about solving what the current issue was, which a lot of organizations would say, I get sent lots of CVs. There's too few of them that are relevant that I would like, and the person's not really bought into the process very often. And even if we do manage to pluck a diamond out of the CV, often what happens is we hire the person, they're not around much longer. And there's no guarantee for that. There's no science on that. There's nothing to inform us or help inform our decisions that it might be a better decision than another one. So we're not really being helped and supported to make good decisions. We're just being sent CVs. Yeah. And when we pay thousands of pounds for that, that feels like an expensive CV. So our total focus was, how do we solve that and give hiring managers, and C-suite execs that are spending these budgets, and HR directors, how do we give them that informed decision at the end?
Yeah.
And how do we guarantee it so that it saves them lots of money, and their investment is returned? How do we do that? And that's what we focused on. So if we'd have focused on the competition, we'd have probably have done a few little bits and pieces that were a little bit different.
Yeah.
It might have been a little bit sort of shiny toy syndrome. We might have come up with a different sort of value prop or something like that. But would it have been truly different at its core, at its heart? I don't know that it would. So for us, we looked in the market for who else is tackling this in the way we would like to, because we'd like to learn from them, not necessarily to go head to head with them, although we might have ended up doing that. But who else is doing that sort of stuff? And we find a couple of people that we're doing, a couple of companies that were doing things slightly differently. And then obviously we had a look at who was in our sector and who was in our industry, and what might be different and what might be similar. And but it was more so from a point of view that it would add value to clients, so that we could understand how are they currently trying to solve their pain, and how is it solving it or not. So our approach to competition.
Is there a book or podcast or resource that you can recommend and that's been influential for you on your journey?
I absolutely loved the book. I mean, the biggest book that's had the biggest impact on my life has been the Bible. But if we're staying in sort of a bit of a business context, although that is business, right? Because it can transform a life, and business is just part of that.
Yes.
But if it was on the business journey, you mentioned sort of podcasts and things like that. A book that really had a big impact on me was a book called Leadership and Self-Deception.
Oh, wow.
And that is by the Arbinger Institute. And that was a really impactful book, and I've given it to a couple of friends of mine, and it has also had a significant impact on them as well. So I would, yeah, for anyone that's thinking about moving into a leadership position, or anyone that's in a leadership position, and would love to be a more impactful leader, read that book.
It's a
Really
great recommendation. And lastly, Dan, how can the audience get hold of you? And I'd love to do a follow-up with you in the new year as well for another spotlight where we'll delve a bit more deeper into your actual framework, which we haven't had a chance to talk about today.
Well, yeah, that would be great. Yeah, the place I'm most active is probably LinkedIn. So feel free to connect. I know LinkedIn's telling everyone to follow me now. I think you get certain metrics or whatever, and it prompts people to follow. But if you hit the 3 dots and connect, you can drop me a message, and always up for a chat, sharing ideas, giving value wherever I can. So yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant. Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure to be with you today in the spotlight and shining a light on Venture 10, and your journey has just been super special, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with you in the new year. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Maxine. No, it's been great. Have a wonderful Christmas if I don't speak to you before.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.